Hello everyone. Durga Pujo is almost here, but we know that this year will be a little different. We have with us cardiac surgeon Dr. Kunal Sarkar, and we will hear from him what he believes we should keep in mind as we celebrate Durga Puja this year. So Dr. Sarkar, we know that there is something definitely different about this year. The pandemic needs no introduction. And we're hearing so much about whether masks are effective and whether at all Pujo should be celebrated the way it is. But it's also true that we are excited after so long to enjoy Durga Puja as we do every year. So first of all, how do you feel about Pujo, and what do you think our viewers should keep in mind as they celebrate this year?
Mayuri, we are definitely at the crossroads of a very, very strange time. And the times are strange because this pandemic has had the story of, festivals and festivities built into it ever since it expressed itself way back in end November or December 2019. And you will remember, it looks like a long time back, but we will remember it was the Chinese Lunar New Year, which really caused an eruption, when people in Wuhan had thought that they had got this virus under lid and the world need not know about it. One of the main events that caused the eruption of this thing and brought it into global view and vision was the Chinese Lunar New Year, which happened, in the time of January. Thereafter, there were many other incidents as well. There was the Cheltenham races in England. And a little bit controversially, in our country, we had Namaste Trump. And the great Trump has not been spared by the virus either. That's where we are. So as we go, the virus is linked with all these festivities. Why? Because a pandemic, a respiratory infection, simply loves a crowd. So all it wants, all it needs to flourish, to prosper, to infect a great many people around it is a whole lot of people being close to one another. So as you correctly say, we've really been through a lot of stress, a lot of trauma, way down from January, the period of lockdown, and thereafter. We are fed up with this tedium. We have all kinds of disruption to our normal life and living. And people all over, Bengalis, non-Bengalis, we are looking forward to this period of time, Durga Pujo, Diwali, Kali Pujo, to get some relief from the pandemic fatigue, as people are calling it. But we have to watch our way, where we lead ourselves into.
Absolutely, I fully agree. And we wouldn't want an occasion so close to our heart to be an occasion where the virus is a super spreader, as they call it. But on the other hand, we are hearing that masks are an effective way of controlling the coronavirus. However, given the crowd and the loud noise, social distancing is anyway impossible in our city, but it might be even more impossible or beyond imagination in a crowded pandal. So what do you think we should keep in mind? Are masks enough? Are they adequate? What can we do?
You see, absolutely right, Mayuri. First of all, it's not a point to be mercilessly critical of people. But look, somehow in the Indian scenario, we have tried our level best, but we have not got the timing very correct. Our lockdown came and went. There was a complete flourish of cases after the lockdown got over. So somehow we've been trying, but we have still, this is perhaps the first fortnight in which it looks like the overall case numbers in India is sort of on the downward trend a bit. Active cases are coming down. But having said that, we also have got to take a very realistic view of, say, what's happening in this part of the world, in West Bengal, in Kolkata. You see, we've really not had the same anger as Maharashtra has had, or Tamil Nadu has had, or Karnataka in recent times. But we've really not calmed down completely either. And only in the last few days, we do sense a little bit of rumble in the figures where the hospitals are getting full, the numbers seems to be edging up. Hence, what we are trying to say, Mayuri, over here is, it is for all of us to realize that the problem is very much there. The problem has not gone away. Thanks to the effort of the people, all the government, the doctors, every one of us put together, we've got some kind of a lid on the problem, but it has not gone away at all. Few things really are the prerequisites which will make this problem become a Frankenstein. And one such thing is a crowd. Who gets infected? People like you and me. People. And more the people. If just there is a little bit of a virus in a few of us, that is nothing more than a respiratory virus enjoys. It will spread from A to B, B to C. So all it wants is people. The virus is not concerned at all as to why the people are there. Are they there for Christmas? Is it Diwali? Is it Durga Pujo? Is it Ashtami? Is it Bhashan? It is what? It's not bothered. Is it morning? Is it evening? You need somebody symptomatic, asymptomatic, carrying the virus, whole lot of people. Now let us look at the question of masks. Now we know for sure that if we put a mask on, a mask protects us from a droplet infection. Now what happens when we walk into a puja pandal, which is a little bit confined? In spite of our best efforts, we have crammed in, say in 2019, if a puja pandal would have held, say, 2,000 people at a time, all right, this time we've put in 500, not 2,000. But you still have 500 people in a confined space. They are breathing. Some of them are coughing. And if the space is confined, poor ventilation, no cross current, then what happens is we are generating in that atmosphere what is called fine particles in the aerosol form. And in the aerosol form, masks will be rendered useless. A mask can protect you or me from a particle which is like 100 microns, 200 microns in diameter. Think of a virus. How wide is a virus? 1 micron. So you will ask me, what the hell are we doing with a mask? 1 micron as opposed to 100 micron. But the virus exists in a water droplet. So it forms a particle, a droplet, which is like 100. But when you and I are breathing, when we are speaking, we are producing fine particles, which are around 20, 30, 50 microns, the aerosols. And if there are too many of them, then they have a tremendous infective potential, not in everyday life, not outside, not in the roads, not in open air, but in a confined space, yes. So, more the number of people, more confined the place, less is the ventilation. The masks will start proving ineffective. So this is what we have to be very careful about. And just to add one more thing, puja is a time of gaiety, it's colorful. It's the best time we've ever had in the entire year. We look forward to it. But the characteristic is a crowd. It's the crowd that characterizes the pujo. So this year, if there is one thing we've got to give up, we've got to give up the crowd. So the crowd, whether it is inside or outside, whether it is in front of the goddess or by the side of the goddess, it does not matter. Crowd is going to be a dangerous word as far as Pujo 2020 is concerned.
I fully agree, and very, very important to remember that a misconception that our numbers are falling might prove to be even dangerous,
Yes,
might
yes.
overburden our already very, very, very overburdened healthcare system. So in the wake of, as you said, it doesn't matter where the crowd is. Even if we try to practice social distancing within a pandal, it might not be so outside, and crowds still may be gathering there. There might be lines and overcrowding everywhere. So is there a special message or some pointers to the Pujo committees, anything they can keep in mind?
You see, Moiri, at the risk of risking our popularity, if there was ever a thing like that, we have to stick our necks out and make a very, very unpopular request, which is please minimize noise, background music in the pandals to as much as you can, as much as we can. The reason is why. Because even if there are 50 people in the vicinity and there is music in the background, it will be instinctive. Naturally we will be shouting at the top of our voices and trying to speak to one another. What happens in a restaurant? What happens in a noisy cafe? We are shouting. And when I'm speaking normally, if I would have a tendency to put out, say, 5 droplets, when I'm shouting at the top of my voice, I will be putting out something like 500 droplets. So my propensity, my capacity to transmit would increase about 100 times. So do not force people to shout, because every time they do, they are putting others at risk by causing more droplets and more aerosols inside the atmosphere. So now and then you can have a little bit of music for a few minutes, but not a constant din and racket which is forcing people to shout at the top of their voices. Not this year, at least. The other very important fact that Mayuri referred to is, now there is a puja going on here. I have the people, the pujaris, who are coming in and out. Yes, they have to. During Durga Puja, there are quite a few of them. Then you have the very, very diligent, dedicated committee members. They are trooping in and out all the time, very busy. They have a lot of work in hand. But are we sure that these people have been tested? Because they will be coming in close contact with the people throughout the day, the night, the evening. So to the committees, the people who you will be posted inside the pandal for the period of those 4 days, please make sure they are well identified, and it will be a very good idea to have the people identified and tested who are going to interact with the general public for the duration of these 4 days. Let us not take anything for granted.
So the youth, they're so excited about Pujo. They've been stuck at home for months on end, and they're excited to meet their friends, and we understand that. They might think that they won't go to a puja pandal where there's a big crowd. Maybe they might choose to go to the cinema hall or to a cafe. However, even those places have a high risk because the virus doesn't care where you are, as you said. It just needs a crowd. So what should people keep in mind? Just general awareness and general activities that they should be wary about during puja.
You see, very, very innocently, very unknowingly, we can actually get ourselves in the middle of a super spreading kind of situation. I may be harboring a few viruses without being aware at all. And when I'm in a crowded, confined place, in a cafe, a restaurant, in a mall, or in a street corner, wherever, I will be spreading it on to the other people who may not have the same resistance that I do. And that will create absolute havoc in the community and create a tremendous amount of sick people, which none of us would like to see.
Absolutely. And not to risk our popularity even further, I think I would add a word of caution to perhaps crowding around food stalls, even if
So
it
true, so
means
true.
even if it means missing your Pujo biryani. Perhaps that is a cost that this year we must pay. But I think the message across the board is that we must be careful, and in order to be safe, it's not that we give up our enjoyment, but we always keep in mind that we are in the midst of a pandemic, the virus is still here, and we must do our best to keep safe.
Mayuri, if I may continue what you had said, Mayuri has raised a very important point. We have to sacrifice a little bit of our enjoyment. And please, people who have some illnesses, people who are, kind of 65, 60, 65 on the other side, please do not risk going out in the middle of whether it is 25 people, 50 people, or 100 people. So you will be much better off having a pujo in the comfort of your drawing room, in front of your television sets, and avoiding crowds of any description. And should any one of us feel a little bit unwell, have a cough, a cold, a sneeze, you are a little bit doubtful that, am I feeling a little bit queasy today? Again, with folded hands, do not risk being in the middle of people. So be careful. Should I feel that I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, I do not go and expose myself. Whether the crowd is 5 or 500 is immaterial. So that amount of consideration, that amount of restraint, we have to show ourselves and to our fellow citizens this year. So have a little bit of less enjoyment this year. Think of the year ahead.